Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me once again, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we are continuing our trip down 90s live action movies lane, this time with a continued kind of trend of camp with heavyweights this time around. Big old fat camp movie from the 90s that I remember watching a ton growing up. What was your relationship with this one?
Trevor, I'm happy to tell you, unlike Camp Nowhere last week, enjoyed in my youth by some of my siblings and I. However, Heavyweights is a certified Abbott family classic. Ladies and gentlemen, that means
It's up there with the Darby O'Gill. It's up there with the Princess Bride.
Darby O'Gill not held up by the rest of my family.
Okay.
I love Darby O'Gill and the Little People, but that's because I loved watching old Disney movies on Disney growing up, like Sunday night movies, back when ABC used to do that. No, this is like Abbott family certified classics are like Heavyweights, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You've got Mail. Sandlot is another one.
Sure.
Like there's a whole list of them, and I've mentioned it before when we've done that D Plus show. But I think I might have missed it when I talked about Sandlot. But
No, I think it came up in the Sandlot. I think
so
that's
this
probably
is
the most recent time we talked about the Abbott family certified classics kind of thing.
and for folks who don't know, those are movies that my family either rented a ton, like on a regular basis from our local Blockbuster, or that we should have probably owned it by that point, or films we owned and when we used to go on family vacations, because it was cheaper to like stay with grandparents or something during the summer because my dad was a teacher. We would have this like little mini TV with a VCR attachment.
Sure.
And so we would watch movies while we did like, 8-hour stints of road trips and stuff.
Yeah, Camp Nowhere and Heavyweights were that for my family as well. I mentioned with the Camp Nowhere, we would have like a VHS tape that had like 3 movies burned onto it kind of thing. Heavyweights was almost certainly in that, and it was the same kind of thing of like, oh, we're going on a road trip? Okay. We had our like Explorer van that had like a little mini TV, had a VCR attachment, we had a original Nintendo Entertainment System hooked up to it. So like for our big van cross country trips, we had something to keep my sister and I entertained in the back, and we'd switch between like gaming and movies and all that fun stuff.
So you had like the actual like the nice like Explorer van, and my family was like in a GMC box van that we like modded out with like a.
I mean, it is an Explorer van that until about 6 months ago, my parents still had.
That's
like
fair.
you may have seen it in the
I
few
definitely
times
saw
you were
it.
over there in the carport.
I have seen it because I
Yeah.
brought it up. I was like, "What's up with like the
Yeah.
old cars?"
Yeah, it hadn't been used for a long time, or it had been like used as basically just storage for like my dad's tools and stuff. But yeah, that was like our little road trip vehicle growing up, where we would when we would go back and visit like family in Michigan and do like cross country 3 weeks there, 3 weeks back kind of trips. Yeah, fun stuff. So yeah, Heavyweights near and dear to both our hearts. Do you remember when the last time you like probably watched this one was?
This one we're probably talking about a good, like rough decade, I'd say, since I've seen it. I think I've seen it with. There's a good chance that it's longer than that, but I recall watching it more recently.
I'm thinking this is at least 20 years since I've watched it.
Gotcha.
I'm going back. I'm like, yeah, it's got to be before I was 19 is probably the last time I watched this at least.
And to be completely fair on my end of things, I have seen this movie so many times, I knew every single scene that was coming up.
Sure, yeah.
Like, it might have been more than like 10, 12 years since I've seen this movie. I've seen this movie so much, I know beat by beat how this movie goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was surprised because it's like, I'm sure I missed something. And it's like, no, I just remember everything.
All right, well, yeah, originally released February 17th, 1995. So a year later from Camp Nowhere last week. Other releases of the time, end of 94, December 16th, 1994, we had Dumb and Dumber. We had Little Women and Richie Rich came out December 21st. That's the
Wow.
was that the Winona Ryder Little Women
Winona Ryder, Little Women, and that
and Macaulay
Macaulay
Culkin, Richie
Culkin,
Rich. Yeah.
Richie Rich, yeah.
Yep. We had the live action Street Fighter movie December 23rd. Getting into 95, we had Before Sunrise January 27th. Billy Madison on February 10th. Alongside Heavyweights on February 17th, we had the release of the Brady Bunch movie, which I remember that being a fun one that I watched a lot growing up too. As somebody who like grew up on reruns of the Brady Bunch, it was fun seeing how they like sandwiched so many references into the movie version of that. Man of the House, March 3rd, which is another movie we talked about doing this month, but I think we've swapped it out for something else. Tall Tale, which I have done a Disney Plus that D Plus show on, was March 24th. Tank Girl and Tommy Boy were March 31st.
Wow.
Bad Boys and our very first That D Plus show, a Goofy movie. I'm pretty sure that was our very first one. Pretty sure that's the one I pushed for to be the very first one, a Goofy movie. That duo was April 7th, and Jury Duty. Continuing on last week, we were very clearly in this era of Pauly Shore, was April 12th. This movie fared a little bit better than Camp Nowhere at the box office. Not too much, but in 1995 it had a domestic gross of $17.6 million, which according to the numbers is approximately $43.7 million adjusted for inflation. So where do you think $17.6 million falls in 1995? Cameron, I will give you the, as with last week, I'll give you a top 10 to kind of base this off of. Number 1, Die Hard with a Vengeance, $366.1 million.
Yeah.
Number 2, Toy Story, $365.2 million. Number 3, GoldenEye, $356.4 million. Number 4, Pocahontas, $347.1 million. Number 5, Batman Forever, $336 million. Number 6, Apollo 13, $335 million. Fittingly at number 7, the movie 7, $328 million. Number 8 was 101 Dalmatians, which I believe that would have been the live-action one with Glenn Close, $304 million. Number 9, Casper, $282 million. And number 10, Notorious Bomb, which was not actually a bomb, but everybody thinks it was, Waterworld at number 10, $264.2 million. Just ahead of Jumanji at number 11, $262 million. So with that, with our top 10 going all the way down to $264 million, where you think Heavyweights falls this time around?
For me, Heavyweights probably. I mean, gosh, what was number 10 again? It was Waterworld was how much money?
264 million. 264 million compared to 17.6 million.
Yeah, so we're talking
here.
like last week. I gotta be scaling high numbers on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and start the thing off at 72.
72 was House Guest with, I believe that was a Sinbad movie, maybe? Anyway, whoever it was, 26.3 million. So,
okay,
we are below 72.
Gotcha.
Keep going.
All
Higher
right,
number.
let's go 86.
86. Don Juan DeMarco, 22.0 million.
Okay, I'm closing in though. In. Let's say 95.
95. Cutthroat Island, 18.5 million.
We're getting close. 102.
Oh, I gotta go to a different page for 102. So you've jumped past.
Okay.
But 102 was Mad Love with 15.4 million.
Okay. So 98.
98. Murder in the First, 17.3 million. Very close.
99.
Other way.
Oh, sorry, other way. 97.
97 is Heavyweights.
Gotcha.
With 17.6 million. Number 9, Jury Duty, which the Pauly Shore, aforementioned Pauly Shore one. Just ahead of Heavyweights, The Big Green.
Oh yeah.
Again in Disney Kids category there. But yeah, trying to see if there are any other fun. Billy Madison, which I mentioned, was number 76, 25.4 million. Free Willy 2, number 67. Tommy Boy at number 63. A Goofy Movie at number 58. Because, we didn't do this back when we were doing that one. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie was number 52, just ahead of Showgirls at number 53. Man of the House was number 50. Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat movie, was number 27 with $122 million. That's probably good. Yeah. So, yeah, number 97 compared to the 100 plus that we had last week for Camp Nowhere. It's I didn't bother kind of breaking up domestic and worldwide this time because this is another one that basically had one gross. But the movie has a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. This one is in the Walt Disney Pictures timeline, which I thought was funny given that they put the Camp Nowhere in like Hollywood Studios timeline.
Yeah, which
because I
is
felt like this one had more kids cursing and stuff.
I think it definitely did. I think it was about like I don't know. I guess it was. It is interesting because this one I remember coming out as a Walt Disney picture. Because it used to be on the previews for on VHS tapes.
Sure, yeah.
So
I'm trying to see what this one was rated, but you can't find that on IMDb. Apparently, it's not one of the things they just have like listed right up front. I mean, yeah, it's got to be PG or PG-13, I guess. So.
I can guarantee you this movie is PG.
Oh, PG, yeah.
Yeah.
There it is.
My family would not have been watching it if it was PG-13.
But in the Walt Disney Pictures timeline of things, let's see, we go back to February of 94, we had Blank Check. March of 94, we had D2 The Mighty Ducks. July of 94, Angels in the Outfield. November of 94, Santa Claus. Christmas of 94 was the live-action Jungle Book. Then February was Heavyweights here. March was Man of the House and Tall Tale. July was Operation Dumbo Drop. And then September was The Big Green. So that's kind of the look at some of the Disney live-action movies of the time. Our director here, Stephen Brill, who Heavyweights is his directorial debut, but he would also go on and work with Adam Sandler a couple times on Little Nicky and Mr. Deeds. And then he also directed a film called Walk of Shame before eventually coming back and directing an episode of Mighty Ducks The Game Changers, the recent Disney Plus series. Writers, in addition to Stephen Brill, this also had Judd Apatow, which I did not know was a thing until I was looking this up, so I thought that was funny that this is kind of like his first big movie. Prior to Heavyweights, he had written for a number of Grammy Awards. He'd been basically like one of the punch-up writers on that. He'd also worked on the Ben Stiller Show, Freaks and Geeks, Undeclared, and then he would kind of come back to movies with stuff like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Walk Hard, The Dewey Cox Story, Funny People, This Is 40, and most recently, The King of Staten Island. Stephen Brill was the other writer on this, having done The Mighty Ducks, D2 and D3, The Mighty Ducks, Heavyweights here, kind of sandwiched in between D2 and D3. He would also do the WCW movie Ready to Rumble. He also wrote Little Nicky, Walk of Shame, and then he basically like helped create the Mighty Ducks Game Changers show when that was brought in. Starring our cast of characters here, Aaron Schwartz as our lead kid, Jerry Garner, was in the first Mighty Ducks movie as the kid Carp. Who was then just inexplicably gone from the rest of the franchise. So it was like, oh, it's weird that like they liked him enough to bring him in for this, but didn't keep him around for the other Mighty Ducks things. But yeah, he would then do Heavyweights, and he had a recurring character on Gossip Girl in his teen/later years. And of course, we have Ben Stiller as our big bad, Tony Perkis Jr., as well as Tony Perkis Sr. here. Heavyweights being one of the first big movies that he did.
Yep.
He'd done some like appearances and stuff like that beforehand, but Heavyweights kind of his first seemingly lead-esque role. Of course, he would go on to make a notable impression in Happy Gilmore and The Cable Guy for getting movies like There's Something About Mary, Mystery Man, Meet the Parents, Zoolander, Dodgeball, where he's basically just playing this character again. Night at the Museum, and Tropic Thunder, among his many, many other credits over the years. From the counselors and staff side of things, we have Tom McGovern playing Pat Finley, who prior to this had been in Sleepless in Seattle. He was also here in Heavyweights, and he had like a recurring role as one of the radio workers in Frasier, as well as a recurring guest role on Everybody Loves Raymond. Paul Feig playing Tim here, Tim Orford. Heavyweights being one of his first big movies as well, before going on being in That Thing You Do, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and these days he's probably best known as a director for things like Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, the 2016 Ghostbusters, and A Simple Favor. Leah Leal plays Julie Belcher, the nurse. She was also in D2 The Mighty Ducks, Heavyweights here, Little Nicky, and then she was in a series called VIP. Tom Hodges as Lars was in Steel Magnolia prior to this, and then Heavyweights, and then he's had like miscellaneous other things over the years, but nothing pretty much of these heights. Patrick LeBrec plays Dawson, who is AKA the former chipmunk who kind of rats out the chipmunk hiding place. He was in Beethoven, but he was also in Camp Nowhere last week.
Yes, he was.
He was the grocer that cards
The kids.
Eric. Yeah. And then spoilers, he's also in next week's movie Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
So he's the tying thread of a lot of our 90s movies here. Has not done much since Heavyweights, but I think probably had a few other credits out there. On the camper side of things, we of course have Kenan Thompson here as Roy Murphy, who around this time was in stuff like All That and The Mighty Ducks, but of course is now the longest tenured person on SNL. I think he's been on there for more than half the show's existence at this point. Just blowing Daryl Hammond out of the water in terms of longest tenured cast member. Sean Weiss as Josh. Of course, Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks series. Joseph Wayne Miller plays Samuel Salami Sam Dampier, who only had one other credit aside from this one. Max Goldblatt plays Philip Grubinov. Didn't have much in the way of credits, but he did go on to be an editor, film editor on a number of projects. David Goldman as the little Brit Nicholas Wales. This was the only thing he has on his IMDb. Cody Berger played Cody Farley. He was also in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And Robert Zalkind as Michael Sims went on to be another editor in the movie industry. We have a handful of little cameos here. Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira play Harvey and Alice Bushkin, in addition to being, I believe, Ben Stiller's legit parents. Jerry Stiller was also in Seinfeld, and Ann Mira was in Archie Bunker's Place. We have Tim Blake Nelson in here as like the recruiter at the top of the movie, of course, from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, as well as he'll be in the upcoming Captain America movie, reprising his role as the leader from the Incredible Hulk film all those years ago. And Jeffrey Tambor as Jerry's dad, of course, from Arrested Development. Alan Covert as Kenny the cameraman. He's been in so many Adam Sandler things.
Yeah.
And the chef is played in an uncredited role by Peter Berg, who at the time of this was probably best known for Chicago Hope, but he's gone on to be a director as well of things like Hancock and Battleship. Some trivia here. Originally, the Seymour Butts joke was supposed to be a Peter Fitz joke. Josh is going to tell Tony that the Chipmunk Bunk snack hoard belongs to Peter Fitz. Then Tony asks, "Who's Peter Fitz?" With Josh answering, "Anyone's Peter Fitz if you push hard enough." But the joke was changed to Seymour Butts to be more family friendly. While Ben, as I mentioned earlier, while Ben Stiller plays both the parts of Tony Perkins and his father, the Bushkins are played by his actual parents, Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira. As part of his first date with his eventual wife, Judd Apatow tried to impress Leslie Mann by showing her this film. That's what I've got here for the trivia. So, Cam, how do you think this one holds up?
I mean, like, unsurprisingly, I have a deep fondness for this movie. And that fondness, I think, is like carries over pretty well. Mm-hmm. I think it holds up as far as the film goes. It holds up pretty well. It has a few, I don't think it has any editing issues. I think it's just like some of the stuff is just like pretty dated as far as a lot of like concepts go for So
I could do without the campers all in Indian attire during the Apache relay at the end.
Yes, the thing that I point out about that though is that at no point in time, like, it's not like, oh, the other side was dressed up as cowboys. They're dressed up as like Romans.
Yeah.
And the other side is dressed up as native, but at no point in time is that like ever like made a point.
Yeah.
It's more like yeah, they're being like Roman sports, and we're like hi, like kind of like the native motifs that a lot of summer camps attach themselves to in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it like fit within that vein of it, and so you don't really you don't really question it as far as like that era goes. Mm-hmm. But like they like them like the fact that they are in
like it's nowhere near what it could have been.
Oh yeah.
Like
this
how bad it could have been when I see them all pop up and then I'm like, oh no, especially because we had just had that conversation about Man of the House.
Yeah, you and I did off podcast.
Because they're what the Indian scouts or Indian guides.
Yeah.
In that movie, and being like, oh, there might be some problematic elements of that we don't necessarily.
And immediately I recalled several problematic elements of that film, and it's like we're not doing that one.
So I'd forgot, like I had remembered like the relay thing at the end, but I had forgotten that they were all dressed up with like the little headdress thing.
Yeah,
and stuff.
the only thing
it was not nearly as bad as it could have been.
The only thing that gets mentioned is like, hey, take that feather off. It won't fit underneath this. And it's like the helmet. And it's like, that is the only time their like outfits are ever mentioned.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's very much straightforward. Like, oh yeah, we're dressed up like this.
Yeah, it's the Apache relay. So we dress like the Apache probably is the like costume designer's direction on that.
Probably, like, and that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. The other kids are
the other kids
as
are
Romans.
like I feel like the other kids being like Camp VIP or whatever, they're just
MVP,
being like Roman MVP. Sorry, they're just being like Roman gladiators. They're trying to be champions.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, that is it's a whole thing. I think a couple things that don't work for this movie are the undeniable accessory to kidnapping that every single member of the staff and camp become.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But it's believable because at the very end, it's like basically like covered up by Tony Perkis's Tony Perkis Sr.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of it that is like I look back on it, it's like I'm like, I get like why the kid, like, we did it and we set it up and like we have him imprisoned, and then
it's like they had no end game plan.
Absolutely
around
not.
That whole thing. It was just
not.
like, well,
we're gonna show how bad Tony is.
Yeah, we gotta keep him. Yeah, we gotta keep him here long enough to let the parents know how bad he is before we'd be like, oh, and by the way, it's okay. We've kept him from harming your kids for a while because we were holding him behind like electrified fencing. Like that would not have gone over.
I will say,
but it's very much it's in the same vein of like Camp Nowhere last week. It's like, yeah, everybody, like all the authorities kind of show up and they're like, everybody's cool with this. Everybody's cool with this. All right, we're cool with this too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at no point did cops show up for this one. It was just like Tony Perkis Sr. showed up and he's like, all right, I'm going to give everybody refunds and we'll shut down the camp. You want to keep the camp open? All right, for legal liability insurance, I got to have a name on it. Like who's been here the long, like immediately passing.
He's basically being like, you don't press charges against my kid. I won't press charges against
your
guys.
kid. Like,
so, yeah,
it very much like that tit for tat of of that. Just like, hey, I know my kid like tortured your children for several weeks. Your kids, like, one kid flashed himself to my son and then let him down to be physically injured in a trap pit or a pit trap, and then you held him prisoner behind a barbecue or electrified fence. Granted, they still fed him extremely well. Like,
sure, yeah.
They're like, hey, everybody's eating well now. Which, shout out to and then they also made him pissed off to get him to like clamp onto the fence so they could show that it was electrocuted for story purposes.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a whole lot of things that they do in this movie that just like it works. It plot wise it works. Things are just going, and it's like, well, what's the point of them breaking into to Tony's lodge? And it's like, because that sets them up to have been running away and like been like, oh, we don't have, like, he didn't. It's not like, oh, he's keeping the candy. He got rid of it. He got rid of all their contraband. Mm-hmm. So like that's that. And so they're desperate now. And what do they hear? A rapper. It sets them up to find out that one of the kids also, that's the other thing. There's a toilet stall that covers the top half of the toilet, bottom half, totally Winnie the Poohing it. That there is no cover for what is actually should be protected here whatsoever. It makes no sense because the other stalls look like normal stalls. This one is the only one that's like half a stall, and it's not even like the top half is removed where like you could so somebody could be like talking to somebody or whatever. It's straight up like bottoming it, like some weird voyeur stuff is going on with that toilet stall. But it's the perfect setup of them hearing rap or finding out about the burger and like the contraband like smuggling that's going on. And it turns out the kid who used to be a chipmunk busted them for their candy stash just so he could like make bank during the summer.
Yeah, he basically set up a whole racket.
Yep, brilliant.
Smuggling racket, yeah.
But that also
that also shout out
yeah.
like that Pat is also buying into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to them also being like, oh, he's actually also a secret ally. We see Lars has some moments to shine before he makes his face turn.
I think
It's at the dance in particular. The
Yeah.
dance is a big turning point where it shows that Tony really is the problem. Lars is like an extension of that, but we see Lars is A, super into music, and B, really happy, like the kids are getting into it too.
I would
Like,
say, yeah, Lars for me on this rewatch, like as a kid, I'm sure I hated Lars.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
like Lars ends up being a very MVP character in this one for me. I think he has a lot of the funniest lines in his delivery and his like interactions with the kids and Tony.
Listening to the song at the very end for the entirety as an adult is hilarious. It's a hilarious song in the end credits, especially when Lars chimes in. He goes, "I was not scared of that, dear." Just really good, like really good comedy here.
Yeah.
But I also
I was sad that he didn't really do much more beyond this in terms
He was-
of like he felt like he could have been like one of those great like character actors of this era, and I just feel like he didn't get to do much more after this.
which is sad because he is pretty fantastic. Although he is a creepy albino, so when he puts on the white wig for like the art thing,
When he's Andy Warhol.
yeah, that makes sense then why he was doing like super pale. Then that makes sense. I'll leave that at that. Then.
Yeah, I was like, he's not albino. Like, if he were like albino, he'd have had like the red eyes, and
It felt like he did in that
No,
scene.
he was just like super German. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, for that, yeah, because he's the art professor. He's Andy Warhol. Kenny's being Einstein, and then yeah, the nurse is just Lady Liberty, I guess.
Lady Liberty, and she gives a history question of like the five
Name five vice presidents. Yeah.
which is crazy that like the kid who's like, I'm going to name 5 super obscure ones.
Of course.
And it's like, what? No, like, why would you name 5 obscure ones? You're British. You Americans have no sense of history.
That is one. I mean, that's one of the jokes that holds up the best in this.
Yes,
I think.
absolutely.
Especially because if you like the citizenship tests that like English or other nationalities have to take to become like a citizen here, like they have to know more about American history than most Americans do. So
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are like, well, most Americans couldn't pass that test. It's like, well, hold on a second. The way we teach history in this country is like factory molded.
yeah,
And you're meant to forget it as soon as you pass your test.
yeah, we probably could pass it when we're 15, 16, taking like American history in high school or something like that. But yeah, beyond that, it's like, I might be able to do it now.
Also, here's the secret cheat code. If anybody asks you that question, start off with the second, third, and fourth. Like there's enough early presidents.
Exactly. It's like
Well, Vice
John Adams, Thomas Jefferson,
Aaron Burr, who's he's famous
Yep.
for that. Aaron Burr. Theodore Roosevelt is also another vice president who became president.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I'm Quayle. There you go. That one's easy one given to us for that.
Yeah.
Also, Biden. Like we have more modern ones
now we have a much more
Oh, there you go. Biden's another vice president who ended up becoming president, continuing that trend. You know,
Dan Quayle did not end up becoming.
he did
president.
not, because Dan Quayle didn't successfully become a second term vice president either. Yeah.
So going back to just the movie in general, they're very much like you. For me, so much of this movie is like coming back to me like a moment
Yes.
before it happens and all this stuff, and as soon as he gets the The wings. I'm like, oh, that's right. Like he's gonna be captain
He's
on the
captain.
movie.
He's captain, Cappy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love the like camaraderie between the kids. Like I always remember, like as a kid that did not have any sort of need for fat camp when I was a gangly little like 90 pounds wet teenager or something like that. I still was like, I want a place where I can do like the blob and go karts. What the
Yeah.
like? Why don't you sign why don't you sign me up for camp parents? And then I'm like, oh, because it costs money.
Yeah.
And they did not want to do that. They were much more happy to get a van and take us across the
Yeah.
country themselves.
I did scout camp, like Boy Scout camp from 11 to like 18. So I had that kind of like camp experience, except it was like scout based. So everything was like merit badge classes. But there was also like a shooting range and canoes and kayaking and other stuff like that. That was just like there was a lake,
Shooting range with guns or shooting range with like bow and arrow?
both.
Okay.
Rifling is a merit badge, as is archery.
I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing. Is like I learned how to shoot a gun at scout camp. I learned how to like use a bow and arrow at scout camp.
Yep.
I learned that that was the place that we learned that I have depth perception, like issues. And it's like, what, like, why am I not it's like, I know I'm aiming right. And they're like, yeah, but you're not getting the depth on it. I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. And they explained it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to measure this, with like by eye. And so there was a lot. That was a very fun time. That also was like a very, like, I felt very like not well connected to my fellow like troopmates and stuff. So it was also like a very interesting time of like bonding and getting close to people, but also at the same time knowing like on some level I was different than everybody else, and was treated differently too. Like, and I'm like, I don't know why, but it was the way that was. Overall, loved. Like I have very fond memories of scout camp. And so like, yeah, that totally feeds into this. Like as far as like we didn't have go-karting or anything, but we had archery. We had these like beautiful hiking trails that we used to go on. I did the outdoor merit badge. Not the outdoor, I forgot what it's called, but wilderness survival merit badge, where one night out of the week that I was up there, I had to go away from camp, like go like a mile or two away from camp, set up my own shelter, sleep in it overnight, and then come back in the morning. And that was like a whole thing that I did.
Amazing that we just don't have more kids die at scout camp.
The only time a kid came close to dying at scout camp was because another kid assaulted him with a knife.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
didn't put his life in jeopardy because he stabbed him in the butt cheek. I only know about this, and I'm like, that sounds like something that's not real. I know it was real because a kid I went to school with was also at scout camp that year. He was in a different troop in a different area, and the kid who was stabbed was standing over, like he was sharing a tent with him, and he got stabbed on his sleeping bag. So he was like standing by his sleeping bag when he got stabbed. So he had blood all over his sleeping bag. So,
Gross.
yep. It was butt blood, but not like butt blood, but like just butt cheek blood. Ergo blood. I don't know why I got more specific about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So back to
Camp Nowhere.
heavyweight,
Or not Camp Nowhere, heavyweights.
Yeah, back to Camp Hope, slash the Tony Perkins,
Yeah.
whatever he calls it. It's very much like funny beat because this easily would have been like my first introduction to Ben Stiller.
Most people's introduction to
yeah.
Ben Stiller, yeah.
I mean, like going again
Pre-Zoolander,
off the
I guess,
movies
yeah.
and stuff. Like, not a ton of people saw this. Kids would have seen this. Adults probably more saw him, or teenagers and stuff probably saw him more with Billy Madison. But even in, or not Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. But even in Happy Gilmore, he's the orderly in like one scene.
Yeah.
Very memorable because everybody loves the grandma character. But
That's true. He is the orderly in that. And also I forgot, he did a big Gen X movie that he was in. I can't recall it. It was with, I think Ethan Hawke was also in it.
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like there's something about Mary is the first thing that like really shot him into a new level in terms of like pop culture identity.
I mean, zipping up your groin will do that.
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah. So yeah. But he's obviously a lot of fun here, and especially like seeing all of the seeds that he like has in this character that end up being in Dodgeball, which I think is probably a funnier and just more well-rounded film. I think there's a lot of fun, like, kind of to see the like, here's how we started and here's where we got to with Dodgeball. And then he's also doing that thing that like a lot of comedians did at this time of like he's gonna play himself and he's also gonna play his father in it as a character thing because he has his own Ben Stiller comedy show and stuff around this time too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's actually probably a bigger point for Gen Xers. Is he had the MTV Ben Stiller show?
Yeah, the Ben Stiller show. But yeah, I love like I always remember loving like I love that there isn't like conflict among the kids in this one. Like all the kids, get along apart from like, hey, you're holding out on us for food, but immediately they get all past that, and so that like I like them working as a unified force. And I love the like intro scene of all of the different hidey holes and like the introduction to it being like Jerry thinking like he's done this very scandalous thing by sneaking in some Oreos, and then they're like, all right, chipmunks, unload.
Download now.
Download. We just get like all of the clever like generations of campers like hollowing out some of those holes and finding spots for all these things.
Shout out to the British kid who's like, oh, I knew it was too hot on that bus.
Yeah.
And the other kid being like, wipes in. This isn't sanitary.
Yeah.
Licks it, and it's like, what? Oh my gosh! And then all the other kids come up like, everybody, come get a wipe of them, and it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is gross. Something we wouldn't do in a post-COVID era, probably.
Certainly not.
I do like the random British kid being in here.
Well, it helps. This is the funny thing about it. It helps make sense why he's the kid left guarding Ben Stiller's character, Tony, in the prison,
because his parents aren't going to be there for Parents' Day. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. That like solves that plot. Like, I'm wondering if they're like, well, what kid should stay behind? What if one of the kids was British, and like his parents didn't come? It's like, oh, and then like maybe that kickstarted, or they're like, oh, well, we have the British kid who like makes that comment about the history, so maybe that's it. Like, there's a whole thing about it, and there's fantastic. Like, there's so many fantastic like little cameo characters here.
Yeah, it sets up it sets up the gag we get in Ben Stiller's introduction of like, I see a
future president of the United States.
President of the United States. He's British. Right after the very racist, I see a future, rapper.
Artist.
When he's looking at Keenan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Like the way everybody's also just like, what the hell is this guy?
Yeah. The super like infomercial, inspirational speaker kind of persona that he is, that is not at all what like these kids need or were expecting or understand, have any kind of context for.
What's really incredible is like they really nail the whole like weight management is actually about temperance and about like eating healthy, finding like fun things to eat while you're eating healthy. And like that whole thing, that ends up being the solution for these kids. Mm-hmm. And it goes to show also, it's like, maybe don't send your 11-year-old to fat camp. Also,
I guess
that's a problem.
in the grandest picture of things, that's probably the thing that really doesn't hold up as well. Is just this understanding of like, hey, that's creating a stigma for these kids, and that's gonna be way worse.
Yeah, you're sending them to a place that is like, and that's the whole thing is like Tony Perkins thing where he like is serving them like, gosh, kale. No, what is it? It's it's like kale quiche and stuff like that. Like on one of the menus in the cafeteria.
Kelp quiche.
Kelp quiche. That's it.
In the cafeteria, the Monday menu is kelp quiche, power pudding, apples, and field greens.
So like you have this sort of stuff, and it's like that doesn't, especially with kids, that's not helping them. Mm-hmm. Like the idea that the camp is actually based around, which is like we're gonna eat, like give you a nutritious meal. And we're going to make you very active. We're going to have you out. You're going to be in the lake. You're going to be running around. You're going to be playing with kids. Yeah, the entire idea.
That's how you're going to lose weight. Yeah.
That's how we're going to give you a healthy opportunity and also give you a community so you can all rely on each other. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, understand that, kids are going to cheat because guess what? Cheat days are a thing for a reason. Like, that's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's the whole mentality of, like, you get to sneak this, like,
also,
fun thing.
They're fucking kids.
Yeah, they're fucking kids. They're 11.
Yeah.
They're 11 years old. Like, the whole, like, you send your kid off to fat camp to begin with. It's like, why would you, like, none of these kids are, morbidly obese in this movie. Like, they're just chubby kids. Mm-hmm. but also they're fucking 11. Most of them haven't gone through puberty yet.
Yeah, you were watching the movie, and I was out in the kitchen today, and they were doing like the weigh-in scene, and it's like Jerry Gardner, 141 pounds, weight loss goal, blah blah blah, and I'm sitting there like, I wish I were 141 pounds again. But like that is also like yeah, they're 11. I remember like I was all through high school. I was like 120 is like where I tapped out at kind of thing. And I didn't get to like 140 and beyond until like college and beyond.
Yeah.
So even there, it's like, oh yeah, but like, I guess 140 is, probably a little on the heavy side for a kid that age and all that stuff. But still, like, I love the weigh-in scene part 2 where, obviously the kids have been relying on the smuggler and they've been sneaking all the food, and so yeah, like it's not that like nobody is doing better than they were at the beginning, and so like we get the like, oh, you've gained 2 pounds, well, that's something we can still fix, all right, and then like
Yep.
the next person has gained X number of pounds, and he's like, all right, cut the camera, what's going on here?
All right, let's go. Hop on the scale. Hop on the scale.
Yeah.
Hop off the. Get off the scale. Get off the scale. Like,
Yeah.
like perfect. Just absolutely perfect. No, for me it was. I was a bigger. Like I was a bigger kid, but I was not like obese. I was active. I was doing swimming. I did sport, like recreational sports. I was a very active kid. Even up through most of my teenage years, I was super active. Just out of like what I did in my pastime, whether it was like church recreation leagues, whether it was like my family had a pool that I used to go swimming in almost every day, do laps in. It was it was a big thing for me to just like be active. I enjoyed riding my bike everywhere. Like that was the whole thing. But like, and so growing up, especially in the era of like the fad diets of the 90s and 2000s, and growing up through that, like there was a big stigma about weight. The fact that like weight is like a thing in my family. Like to the point where it's like, oh yeah, I go to the doctor and I'm like, well, I weigh this large amount. And it's like, okay, but my blood pressure is totally fine. And it's like, is it fine for a big person? No, it's just fine. And it's like, well, how does this work? And it's like, oh, it turns out some people are genetically disposed to just being larger. And I don't want to put it like I don't want to like be like that's an excuse. You can eat whatever you want. Like obviously, like I've mentioned before, I have a specific diet I have to maintain. Like there's certain foods like I can't eat because I'm at risk of developing diabetes. So like obviously I'm not like the healthiest I've ever been in my life right now. That's for sure. But yeah, it's but so like growing up with this movie was like a cathartic, but also like this along with like Chris Farley taught me like, hey, if you're funny, people don't care that you're fat.
Sure, yeah.
And so like be funny. And this was a big like motivator of like this movie was fun. It was like not super negative about like the kids being like they made jokes about it and like but they were like the jokes on the nose and the kids were in on the jokes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that was the biggest thing is like the kids were in on the jokes, and every time that it came down to it, it had nothing to do with their weight. It had to do with whether or not they were smarter, whether or not they persevered, whether or not they put themselves out there. The dance scene is a fantastic scene where basically, oh, we're just having fun.
Yeah, that was gonna be an awkward thing for any
11-year-old
boy girl dance.
Yeah, your first boy girl dance is so intimidating.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that, and yeah, I love that. Like ultimately, yeah, this is a very different movie if the Camp Hope kids don't win at the relay at the end, but obviously they do, and we have like the feel good ending, and they beat the snooty jocks. Who they got their little baseball win midway through the movie when we take a second to be Sandlot.
Well, they also do like write some really horrible fat phobic stuff on their like dock and stuff.
Oh yeah.
In the middle of the movie, and it's like these kids suck.
They're clearly the bad kids. Yeah. But even there, it's like, and I guess like this is a thing that like, if this movie were made today, it would probably be made clear that like, oh, they're doing that because like the shitty counselor is telling them to do that, and we'd probably get like one or two that would like feel bad about it, or we'd get the moment of one of the kids being like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry
Yeah.
for how things went during that race," or something like that. But no, like they're just shitty. They're just
They're shitty
and
jocks.
shitty jock
They're
villains.
dumb and they're bad at like
Yeah.
basic skills. I've been shaving for a couple of years now. Oh, shaves a balloon, no problem. Other kid covered in like shaving cream. Yeah. Great stuff like that for that relay. But also
They're good at the physical challenges, but yeah, less so about
this.
the other
Yeah.
dexterity or life challenges kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
I think another thing about that too is they're like, we're going to challenge the results of that race. And it's like, well, why would they challenge it? And I'm like, oh, they clearly like and I realized I'm like, oh, that's where the boat motor went. They attached it to the go kart.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that.
Because I'm like, why is that go kart? Like, I'm looking, I'm like,
Yeah.
did they build a custom carriage for that go kart engine? Like, what's going on with that? And it's like, oh, that's a boat engine that they've attached to this. Like, yeah, that would be.
That was the little extra juice that he gets that lets him go flying over the other
Yeah,
car.
like you attach like a full on like boat engine to a go kart, it's gonna fly. And they bring that. I'm like, and he says, "Fine, do it. Here, I'll give you the trophy. We'll airmail it to you." Gives it to the kid. They launch it into the lake because like it doesn't like they did it because
they don't care. They won.
They had
don't-
fun.
They don't need the trophy to
Yeah.
like show that they won. Their memories are going to be like, we won.
we won.
Like, yeah, we know we won.
We like, and also like we did this entire thing where now we feel good about ourselves. Like the whole thing is this is a feel good movie about kids learning how to feel good about themselves. And the enemy is somebody who is trying to make them feel bad about themselves and guilt them into losing weight. And so the moral of the story isn't that like it's like the weight's not important. It's about how you feel about yourself and your confidence. And like I think that's why this movie still works today in a lot of ways because of that. So yeah, I mean this movie is just an absolute treat. It's 97 minutes long. I can't like recommend it highly enough.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to think. Again, like I love so much of like the Lars stuff. He has so many good fun.
Lars'
bits
face turn at night when they come to him and they're like covered in like food stuff that's like war paint though. Like they look like they're raiders in the middle of the night of like having like Road Warrior, but it's like whipped cream and chocolate syrup and stuff on their face.
Yeah.
Shout out to also the Josh character just downing a jar of maraschino cherries and whipped cream. Like everybody else is doing this, phenomenal. Also shout out to, what did we learn? Don't put Twinkies on your pizza.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what a great moment to let them be like horribly like hedonistic. They have that amazing like slow-mo hedonistic moment with around the bonfire at night as they are just like all like enjoying as much food as possible. And then it just leads to them being like, okay, yeah, we got to make some changes.
Yeah.
And
We realize this is not sustainable. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, oh wow, we all have sugar hangovers at this point. Like that's a real thing. And so also shout out to Pat like hooking up with the nurse over like when they were all
Sure. Yeah.
like hedonism and debauchery abound in that case.
Yeah. And like him being like, I should go check on the kids, and the nurse being like, no, stay with me. And,
like-
and him being like, okay.
She had a thing from the get go.
Oh, yeah.
Like straight up, she liked that he was kind of like nervous and shy, and it's like that's fun. Like that's a camp romance, and then it's like, but you also see like the seeds of like, oh, he takes over the camp. Well, and then like maybe they get together, maybe they become the new owners. Like they continue on kind of the idea of what Camp Hope is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Also, shout out to what's his name? Is it Jerry Stiller?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Stiller. Word of advice: don't let anyone write your checks
Yeah, don't
or
let
anyone
anyone
sign your
sign your
checks.
checks,
Yeah, like
Yeah, I'm just looking through like Lars quotes and stuff. The bit of like, hey, you know what we found out, Lars? If you don't have a job, you get deported. So Lars, buddy, you with us or against us? I am with you. I love you. Yeah, just so defeated and
the paintbrush with the honey. Ooh, you gotta watch out for bears here, Lars. Bears love honey. No,
Yeah.
no.
The buddy system. Another
Buddy,
great
buddy.
shout out to that. Yeah.
The body system? Here.
buddy,
Buddy, buddy,
Yeah.
buddy, buddy, buddy.
Yeah.
Like he is comes off as a bit of a like a creep or a sleaze and like a jerk, and then he like grows over the movie into being like a fun actual camp counselor, and it's like, oh, okay, cool.
I don't know. I can't find the quotes of, but he has like in the photo sequence, he has a couple great bits. The end one being like, "You broke my camera."
Yeah, because Keenan puts the like before badge on his butt and like leans over forward, so it's just his butt getting taken a photo of.
Yeah.
And and he goes, "You broke my camera."
Yeah. Please put your fat finger down. You've broken my camera.
So good. Like,
Hey, don't pee in the water. Don't drink the water. He peed in it. Like he's doing such a like he's very clearly not doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's clear like he's doing like, hey, do a comedy like lighthearted Arnold Schwarzenegger is
just
feels like the
do
direction.
Austrian, do German, do like do Eastern European, heavy accent, and at the same time just be like, yeah, be a doofus, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, have you seen Tony? He owes me like $800.
Yeah.
That happens. He hands them the videotape that he edited together for them, and he's like going through like a massive wad of cash. And you're like, where did that happen? You realize, oh, the kid who backstabbed the chipmunks who was smuggling for them gave him the money. Like everything fits.
Yeah.
Everything's a clean, tied off knot at the very end of this movie. There's no loose hole openings. Why did he mention his dad donated all the lights for it, like for the camp and everything? You might be familiar with my dad, the light fixture king of Western Pennsylvania. Like, where is this all coming from? And it's like, oh, he had a rich dad who treated him badly.
Yeah, I mean, like his whole introduction thing is like, I was raised in boarding schools, so I look forward to encountering kids for the very first
Not
time.
even boarding school. Like, I was raised by private tutors.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'm going to enjoy encountering kids for the first time. And it's like, he has zero skills on how to handle children and is a massive child himself. Lunch has been canceled today due to lack of hustle.
Yeah.
Or due to a perceived lack of hustle.
Deal with it. Due to a lack of hustle.
Oh, yeah, just due to a lack of hustle.
Yeah.
Deal with
Yeah.
it.
Lots of great stuff here.
There's very early like sprinklings of what will eventually be his dodgeball character. Is really here as Tony Perkis, and it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
When he comes down from the rafters and he's like,
Yeah, he's like doing the whole like, I thought the villain was a little over the top.
takes the jar, smashes it, then walks over the glass. Like,
yeah. I love that. Like he gets the one up, and he has the fight with Jeffrey Tambor in that moment, kind of thing, and then he like backflips away, but he like compensates for it, and just like crashes in, and basically takes himself out. It's like, well, yeah, I get like it's a combination of his ego and hubris mixed with he's also like been tortured for the last however many days. I also love his on his camp. Him mixing up the like Sisyphus and Icarus.
yes,
myths.
oh my gosh, yes. The boulder melted in the sun.
Yeah.
You're all like Icarus, weak.
Yeah,
It's so good. He has so many phenomenal lines in this movie.
I love the in the like recording of the of the tortures that he's put everybody through. The like moment of them eating the rat. He's like, I threw it in there to spice it up a bit.
Yeah, that was great. Oh, come to mama.
Yeah.
Like, so good.
Yeah.
There's that scene where they do try to chase down a cow, though.
Yeah. That was a thing they had to deal with. Yep.
So it wasn't too far off.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts before we move on?
No, I think that's it. Like, oh man, it's already been like an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Lots of fun revisiting this one. Lots of great little one-liners, and yeah, for me, like, I as much as I remembered this movie, I did not remember Lars and liking Lars as much as I did, and so like watching him in this movie, I was like, oh, he's the MVP, he's the standout. There was another bit of trivia that I'll call out here that was effectively like Sean Weiss when he was originally approached with this, didn't want to do this film, and so I imagine that's part of why he like leaves for a chunk of the movie and then comes back. But according to the trivia, he changed his mind when we found out that if he didn't act in Heavyweights, he was gonna not be allowed back for D3 The Mighty Ducks. They were
there
gonna
you
like
go.
write him out of D3 The Mighty Ducks. And it's like, what a cruel, dickish thing to do to a child actor. Is like, hey, like we're signing you to a multi-movie deal or whatever it is, or if you don't do this, we're gonna punish you for this other thing. It's like, or you could just find another actor to do it and still let me do that other character that everybody knows me for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think especially like that hits a little harder knowing the woes that Sean Weiss went through kind of post Mighty Ducks, and fortunately seems to be kind of back on the mend these days. But yeah,
Oh,
he had.
I thought he passed away.
No. He had, as I recall, he basically had been like, it was like discovered, he's been homeless for a while or something like that. But no, he's okay.
Hey, awesome. Okay, cool. I thought he had passed away, so that made me sad.
When I was looking at this, the actor who plays Salami Sam did sadly pass away at a very young age, kind of, or like not very young. He passed away maybe during the pandemic kind of thing. He hadn't really done anything else acting wise, but it was still like, oh, that's sad seeing like the going through any of these kids and seeing the like death date on their IMDb page
That's really sad.
was a bummer. Yeah, I think of the kids. I think he was the only one. Yeah. All right. Well, diving into the report card, we grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give this certified Abbott Family Classic here, Cam?
I think this is like a solid A. Even I'm just gonna say it's an A+. I love this movie so much. I think that they do such a phenomenal job with it. This easily could have just been like a very like not great movie, but I think it holds itself up, especially over time, of being like, hey, there's so many things about this movie that it could have gone in a really bad way. Like it could have been extremely fat phobic. It could have been like health phobic, like weight apologist sort of thing. It could have gone in the way of.
It doesn't. I don't think it had any moments. A lot of movies around this time have a moment or have like a beat where it's like, therapy gets brought up as the solution.
Yeah.
And it gets like shit on so much. And
Yes.
like I'm so glad like we've turned a corner on that as a society
But
to be like, hey,
at the time, this definitely would have been like.
this very much feels like it could have easily had a joke in there when like Tony Perkins Sr. comes in and be like, we tried to put him in therapy or something, and clearly it doesn't work or whatever.
Yeah, there could have been that. Also, there could have been a moment where they crap on when I'm trying to remember her name.
The nurse?
Julie. Yeah, when Julie is the nurse, when she is teaching them how to make like healthy foods, they could have easily done something to like shit on that, and they don't. They embrace that, and the kids are interested in wanting to make their own pasta. Like they approach it, and they could have like made fun of it, like we're gonna try to be healthy, maintaining that, and then they could have made a big joke out of that, but they don't. They say no, this is a big turning point for these kids. And it's an important story beat moment for them to like realize this as they're feeling better about themselves.
Yeah.
And like I think that there's something they could have done something where it's like the Apache race, everybody's in like offensive Native American garb, and instead it's like your like dollar store variety stuff. And so it's not like it's like it's the Apache relay, so we dressed up as like Apaches. But instead because obviously I don't think the director or anybody knew what the Apaches were like, so they're just like basic Native American, and I'm like, somehow that's less offensive to me, because it's like it feels very, especially for the '90s. Like we talked about, like Man of the House. I remember distinctly. This
is the same year that Pocahontas came out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this easily could have been super offensive, but it isn't. The worst thing is like they're just in that garb, but there's never any attention brought to it or negative aspects to it. So I think that like they skirt away from being bad, like from doing something that's like not great, and just delivering a solid, great movie. So that's my opinion.
Cool. I'll give it an A. Solid A for me. Lots of fun. Definitely holds up better than I thought it potentially could. But yeah, it was a good fun time. Some extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. We have The Big Green, The Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, which again, spoilers, is going to be next week's episode. The Mighty Ducks, Jungle to Jungle, Miracle, First Kid, and Blank Check. And yeah, like half of those movies we've done Nat D Plus shows on, so feel free to go check those out. Extracurricular activities, nothing else. We're peek behind the curtain because I'm going to be going to DC for work here in a few days. We're kind of stockpiling a couple episodes, so we're recording stuff. So we pretty much just are watching this stuff to crank out the
Yeah.
episodes ahead of time. So, but yeah, we will be back next time with Rookie of the Year. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get our the third in our little triumvirate of what was the kid's name? Patrick LeBrec movies. The little villain-esque character who has been in all of our 90s stuff so far this month. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk heavyweights here. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. This is my full first upcoming week of sorry. I didn't realize this is for Thursday. Yeah, this will have been a full first week. So if I haven't been streaming, I apologize, but I've been working. But otherwise, you can always catch my streams 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, just over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite. If you are interested in that. Otherwise, like, we're also just doing, like, it's like I tell people all the time, and those at the end of my streams, like, we have a ton of backlog. If you're like, hey, if this is your first, like, That D Plus show, cool, go check out. We have a massive back catalog that you can check out. So enjoy that while Trevor is, gallivanting around Washington, D.C.
Indeed. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will shout out this past week's That Nerdy Site show, which normally we would have recorded by now, but we are in our timeline recording tomorrow. But I'll probably be discussing Metal Gear Solid 5 and Metal Gear Solid 1, because I've been playing that. So yeah, check that out alongside whatever Cameron's been playing. What are you planning on talking about when we do That Nerdy Site show this week? I'll also probably talk about Thank Goodness You're Here, little indie game that came out this last week. Oh, you'll probably talk Zenless Zone Zero.
Yeah.
The game you've been streaming a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're talking about Zenless
Zone Zero. We haven't
Zero.
talked about on the podcast because we did the Deadpool and Wolverine spoiler cast, and then we had a week off. So, check out That Nerdy Site Show as kind of our other ongoing podcast if you're interested in that stuff. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you like what you heard, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed. And are there any good outros?
Hiya!